welcome everybody. We're excited to talk a little bit more about the Global Compact for 24/7 carbon-free energy that we're jointly developing with Sustainable Energy for All, and also just wanted to thank the team at Sustainable Energy for All for helping to organize this with us. I want to talk today a little bit about why this effort is so important in terms of accelerating decarbonization of grids around the world, and also just share a little bit about our own experience at Google and talk about how we can work together to drive the future that we're all hoping to achieve. So why is energy important to Google? I get that question often. We care about electricity because it's ultimately what powers the computing that makes all of our products possible. And we operate a large and growing footprint of data centers around the world. And those data centers are what delivers the services that over 2 billion people use every day. They also use a lot of electricity. And our journey on tackling the carbon footprint of our electricity consumption actually started over 10 years ago. And I started at Google in 2007. And in that year, we pledged to become carbon neutral. And we also put a solar installation on our rooftops at our headquarters in California, where I am today. That was a 1.6 megawatt solar installation. And at the time, that was the largest corporate solar installation in the world. And it's pretty extraordinary to see how far we've come since then. And I want to talk a little bit about that. But we were really trying to pioneer the best approaches at the time for addressing our own carbon footprint. And like I said, it's been a journey that started back then. And so after we did those things in 2007, we looked for ways that we could actually go and purchase renewable energy directly as a company, because most of our utility partners around the world didn't offer some sort of a clean energy solution. And we worked to pioneer the corporate power purchase agreement. We signed our very first one in 2010 for about 100 megawatts of wind in Iowa. We had to go and change laws in different countries and US states to enable us to buy power directly. And we went and signed agreements all over the world, scaling up our purchasing. And we got to a point to where by 2017, we were purchasing enough renewables through these direct deals on an annual basis to match our annual consumption. And we call that 100% renewable energy. And I know a lot of people here on in the webinar today are familiar with that term. And it essentially means that you're buying enough renewables to match your annual consumption. I think it's an incredible milestone. It's something we're very proud of. We were the first major company to reach it, and we've reached it every year since. But we know that it's just one big important step on this broader journey to get to 24/7 carbon-free energy. And what does that mean? Well, that means that every hour of every day at every location, you're sourcing carbon-free energy. And that's ultimately what we're all trying to achieve. And so we have set a goal that was announced by our CEO last year to reach 24/7 carbon-free energy for all of our operations around the world by 2030. We call this arguably our most ambitious moonshot yet on energy, but it's one that we think is incredibly important, and we also think it's one that's achievable. One of the things that's been fascinating is that we've seen this remarkable transformation in clean energy, just in the last decade or so, with solar and wind projects the cost of them falling dramatically over the last decade. And then this sort of scale up in corporate purchasing that's now being done by cities and companies and organizations around the world. So much that, last year alone, I think there were over 20 gigawatts of these kinds of agreements. So it's a major driver of demand. So this combination of falling prices and transformation in the space and really rising demand from energy buyers really puts us at this incredible period in the evolution of clean energy, where this notion of reaching 24 carbon-free energy, which literally 5 or 10 years ago would have seemed to be almost unachievable, is something that we think we can do at Google. And not only that, we think it's something that everybody should be committing to, because it very much aligns with where we want to take the power grids around the world. We want power grids to be 24/7 carbon-free energy. We want everyone to have access to clean energy all of the time, everywhere they are. And you really want this ubiquitous access to clean energy. And to do that, it's real important to focus on not just the volume that you're doing on an annual basis, but really every location in every hour. So want to talk a little bit about, how are we thinking about this? How are we thinking about, how we apply this approach to our own large portfolio? And there's a few principles that I think are important that guide us as we're doing this. The first one is that we're working to match our electricity consumption, where and when we consume it. So every hour of every day at every power grid. So that's really moving beyond what we were doing before, which was maybe over purchasing renewable energy in places like the US Midwest or Northern Europe, and using that to cover our consumption in places where there wasn't availability of carbon-free energy, say, for example, parts of Asia, and sort of matching it up on an annual basis. Well, now we're really looking at every power grid where we operate and looking at every hour of every day. The second principle we follow is that we're looking at a broader range of carbon-free energy technologies. Before, where we would maybe go sign a deal for a solar contract or a wind contract, now to really get every hour of every day, you have to widen your technology aperture and look at other technologies, whether it's advanced geothermal or other carbon-free technologies. Third, we're seeking to support grid decarbonization by adding new clean energy. We're trying to do new projects. At the end of the day, we're really trying to displace carbon-based power on the grids. And so that means you have to add new carbon-free power. And so that's another very important principle that we follow. And then finally, we target our procurement to really help solve the dirtiest hours of electricity consumption first. And we have a methodology that we use to evaluate different projects. So, going after this goal of 24/7 carbon-free energy, it's much more complex than annual 100% renewable energy goals, but it's also very, very important when you're talking about, fully decarbonizing your operations. And we think there's been enough progress to where it's something that's achievable, and not achievable by 2050, but achievable by 2030, and for others maybe around that same time frame. And we think it's crucial that we align the corporate and organizational purchasing community with the ultimate prize, which is to get carbon-free grids. And so moving to 24/7 carbon-free energy is a better way to align with that ultimate objective. And it really gives, every organization that's trying to achieve it a stake in the power grids where it operates. And I've said before that, you want that to happen. You want everybody to be focused on not only their own operations and not only executing their own deals, but also thinking about the broader ecosystem and the broader system change that we're trying to drive. I get asked a lot, how are we actually doing this at Google? How are we going to pull this off? And there's really three principles that we're following. The first one is looking at how we purchase electricity. And so that's, looking at the types of transactions that we sign to provide power for our operations. And so instead of, like I said before, maybe just doing a solar contract or a wind contract, we're looking at blending the resources. So we've signed deals now where we blend wind and solar, or we blend solar and storage. We also need to make sure that we're tracking this on an hourly basis, because now there's a opportunity for companies and organizations just to purchase unbundled energy attribute certificates instead of actually buying the power and tracking it on an hourly basis. And that tracking is really important. And so that's something we're working to try and achieve across tracking systems around the world. The second thing we're looking at is, how do we advance the technology needle? Wind and solar power have really allowed us to get to 100% on an annual basis, but how do we actually get to 24/7? And that's going to require more approaches on technologies. And so we're looking at different ways to do that. The first thing we've done is actually sort of shift the load, our electricity loads around from different times of day in our data centers or different data centers to align with the times that the grids are the cleanest. We're also looking at different power generation technologies, and we recently signed a deal for advanced geothermal in Nevada. And then lastly, we're looking at how can we advance public policy. And that is a hugely important area. I know everybody here watching understands that, the electricity system is a very highly regulated system, and the policies that are put in place can have a huge impact on the evolution of the grids. And so that's another area where we've been working really hard. We've got a team that's working in the markets where we operate data centers to work on policy changes there, and also in places like Washington, D.C. and Brussels to help advance technology solutions and policy solutions that advance those technology solutions. And so, areas of policy that we're looking at are areas like clean energy standards, or regionalization of electricity markets, or empowering more energy consumers to purchase carbon-free electricity. But I think the policy piece can't be understated, and it's one of the reasons why we're here today, because we really feel like we need to come together as a community and really be advocating for these changes. And one of the things that I think we're really pleased to see with this move towards 24/7 carbon-free energy is that it really gets the buyers focused on not only their own operations, but where to take the grids. And as I said before, you really want to see the buyers playing more of an active role in advocating for policy change. And that's certainly one of the reasons why we're here today. So if you're interested in more information around what we're doing on 24/7, there's a website you can go to. It's called Google. And I encourage everyone to go there and type in Google carbon-free energy, and that'll take you to our page that describes the work that we're doing on 24/7 carbon-free energy. And we welcome folks to take a look at that, and certainly welcome any feedback or questions people have on our program. It's still, we've been at it for over a decade, but on 24/7, we're still in the early stages, and we have a lot of work to do. And it's not something that we can do on our own. We need to work collectively with the community. And then lastly, just really excited about the Global Compact for 24/7 carbon-free energy. Excited to work with everybody here on that. I think this can be a really powerful voice for advocating for the changes that we're going to need to decarbonize electricity grids around the world. And we look forward to sharing more about the coalition in the coming weeks, and looking ahead to the launch at the UN High-Level Dialogue on Energy. So thank you very much, and we're very pleased to be here.